I'm Yelena from Sew Projects, and I'm going to be going through lingerie sewing. So we are gonna be doing I'm gonna be doing the penny pattern today. The penny pattern is the easiest pattern of them all, because it uses a woven fabric, not stretched fabric, so it's really great for beginners. And I'll be going through certain techniques, applying the elastic, doing the gusset, and doing the French seams as well, to give you an insight of how to make your own knickers. Right, cool. So now we've got all of our pieces cut out. We've got the gusset, cotton jersey gusset. We've got the back, that side, and we've got the front with the gusset outer as well. First thing we'll need to do now is to use a 3-step zigzag to go over the front of the gusset edge, sorry, it's not the seam. The back seam only goes into the fabric, so the front will just sit flat like that, so we need to make sure that this isn't going to fray or anything. So we're going to do a 3-step zigzag for that. And it has literally started chucking it down, so sorry about the noise. Right, so the 3-step zigzag, we're going to start a little way in. The reason you start a little way in is so that the needle doesn't drag the fabric underneath. I'm going to go to my 3-step zigzag, going to make it a bit longer, put it on 1.8, I usually put it on for length. 5 is fine for the width. Don't need to backstitch. And you see I'm not going right to the edge, I'm just going near the edge. Again, that will cause problems with dragging the fabric under. So just kind of go like a millimetre away and then go all the way to the end. As you can see, we now get this kind of pretty effect, but then that keeps everything together. So that's the first part. Okay, so next part is to join all the pieces together. So this is the back seam. So you want to place your gusset liner right side up. So this is the right side here. And then we are going to place the back wrong side to the right side. So this is the right side here. So at the moment we've both got them facing up. And then we place the front right side down. So this is the wrong side. So the pattern fabric is right sides together, and then the gusset liner is right side to then the wrong side of the back. So you want to match that up at the notches and then put a pin in that. Right, so with pinning the rest of it, I would pin one layer first and then the next layer. So remember, this is a 6mm seam allowance, so if you can imagine, that needs to be 6mm gap, like that. And then I'm going to put the other layer on. Sometimes I just take that out again, just so, and I hold it with my fingers. and then put it back in. And then do the same to the other side. And then if you want, put another pin or two just to hold the in-between bits together. Oh, it's being a bit fiddly. There we go, got them both. And then the same with the other side. Make sure they all come up level, otherwise sometimes you find you miss one and then you have to go back and redo it. So make sure they're all level. Right, so that's what you want to do. Right, so now we need to sew it. I'm going to go in a straight stitch. I got on number 3 length, just because I don't want the stitches to be too small. So remember, it's a 6mm seam allowance, I need 6mm. And then again, if you start a little way in from the edge, that prevents all dragging fabric under problems, which I know a lot of people get. There we go. And then I take the first pin out. I do a step backwards, and then let's get the next one out. Thing is with sewing, you really don't have to rush it. Like, just enjoy it. Like, when things get rushed is when everything goes wrong. Trust me. And it's, you know, it's meant to be something that is enjoyment, I mean. So it's, do it nice and slowly like that. Oh, that's great. Considering usually when you film things, everything goes wrong. But that's actually really good. So that's all nicely. And then what I'm going to do, you can use, I forgot to say, if you have got an overlocker, you can use an overlocker to do that edge. Obviously don't keep the pins in. So now I'm just going to go over with, you can either use a zigzag or a 3-step zigzag. I quite like a 3-step zigzag. It usually stops it like warping the seam as much. So again, I'll put it on 1.8, and then don't go any further than the stitch, the original stitch. Let's have a look. That's perfect. So as you'll see now, that's your back gusset seam. Okay, cool. So now we need to baste the gusset liner to the front. So I'm just going to pin it in place. And then make sure you get both sides symmetrical here. Otherwise you'll have one higher than the other. And if you're wondering what pins I'm using, these are glass-headed pins. These are the best for lingerie, personally, I'd say. They're slightly sharper than usual pins, and they have a glass head so that you can iron over them. Cool. Right, so now we're going to baste this on. Right, so I'm going to put on a long straight stitch. So that's what you call a base stitch. You're kind of putting something in place just to keep it there, basically, not to stitch it in place. It's just to keep it all together. So I'm going to put it on 3.5, that'll do. And then I'm going to aim for about 4mm in. I'm going to take that pin out. As you can see, the cotton jersey has stretched a bit. You can actually stitch on the underside, which actually stops the jersey stretching. But I forgot, so we're doing it this way. So here we have it. It's all nicely basted on now. It does roll slightly forward, so you can just iron that flat and that will sort that out. So with the side seams, we'd usually do right to right, but we are going to be doing a French seam. So we're going to be doing wrong to wrong first. It feels really weird to do that. So we're going to pin side seams wrong to wrong. And now we are going to sew a 3mm seam allowance, because we've got 6mm altogether. So we're going to half it and we're going to do 3mm, and we're just going to be doing a straight stitch. So I've turned my straight stitch to length 3. I quite like length 3. I'm going to put my needle down. As you can see, it's quite a small seam allowance. And then I'm going to take my pin out. And then do the same to the other side. Great, so now we need to just do what we would usually do, right to right. I'm going to pin that down because it's a bit bouncy. You can iron this as well to make it easier. Great, so now we've pinned them together again. We're going to do another straight stitch, 3mm in again. Perfect. So as you can see, it's a really nice French seam. Right, so first you'll want to test your lingerie elastic stretch, so because it needs to be 100% stretch. So if this is 10 centimeters, so I'm going to stretch it, yeah, it goes to 20 centimeters, so that means it's got 100% stretch. So that's perfect for the penny pattern. Right, I've now got my measurements. So for my leg hole, without any seam allowances or run-ons, it is 55.5 centimeters for the small. And I'm going to add on 2 centimeters for an overlap. So that will be 57.5. So I'm just going to measure that up. And then for the waist, it is 69.5. So again, I'm going to add 2 centimeters for the overlap. So that's 71.5. Just going to measure that against my board. Right, so now I've got my waist cut and then my 2 leg holes cut. I am going to secure them all together first. So I've pinned these together and I'm now going to do a very small zigzag to secure that side, and then I'm going to do the underside as well. So now I've got my 3 loops of elastic, the 2 leg holes and the waist. I'm now going to put the half and the quarter marks on them. So this is called pinning quartering. I'm not at the pinning stage yet. There we are. So I've marked all these, so it's now all quartered up. Then I'm going to get the leg hole elastic. I always do the leg holes first. Right, so this is the right side of the gusset, outer, and then that's the elastic is going to be going right side down. And remember, you've got a 6mm seam allowance, so the elastic I'm using, I haven't actually measured it, I think 8mm, yeah, I thought it was 8. So that means that there should be 2mm. It should look like that from the underneath. 2mm gap here, because you've only got 6mm seam allowance here. So I've pinned the elastic to the gusset, and now I know where that's going to go. I'm going to just pull this out and mark my half mark here. And then I'm going to find the middle by doing the exact same thing I done with the elastic, joining this up to the half mark that I've just done. There it is. Pulling that out. So this helps get the right balance of the elastic. And then do this the other side as well. The back side will be look a bit strange, but everything will fall into place, I promise. So now you can see it's going to be a lot easier to match up the markings than it would have been without. Without, it would have been a guesstimate, but now we know that this will be perfectly balanced. So now I've pinned all the elastic on, the waist as well. Look a bit funny, don't they? But I promise they will look pretty when they're done, definitely. So now I'm going to sew the first pass of elastic. So when I mean the first pass, I'm going to sew a zigzag along this edge here, and then I'm going to do that all the way around, and then afterwards I flip it over, and then I do the top stitch zigzag, which is called the second pass of elastic. So I've got my machine on a medium zigzag, and I'm gonna stitch along this side. So you pull the elastic flat against the fabric, and then line it up. It can be a little bit fiddly over this back gusset seam, so just go carefully. When you get to the side seam, push the side seam to the back. There we go, and now I've completed the full circle. I'm going to repeat this process for the leg hole and the waist as well. So now I've neatened everything up. I'm going to be doing the second pass of elastic, and I'm going to be sewing it on the right side like that, and I'm going to do a medium zigzag along here, about 4 mil in, and then so it catches on the other side as well. So on this particular knicker, you will need to stretch out the fabric on the second pass of elastication. Usually I would advise not to stretch it out as much, because then you could, if you were using stretch fabric, I would advise not to stretch it out as much, but because this is just woven, so that's absolutely fine. Great, so that's one leg, and as you can see, that looks so nice now, doesn't it, after you've put the second pass of elastic on. So just going to finish that off with the waist and then the leg hole, and then I'll show you how it's finished. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial today. Here are the finished knickers, and don't they look so pretty? You can get this kit and the pattern in my shop today.